All rights reserved with Yolanda Taylor. Tuesdays at 5 on Choice.
Good morning and welcome to a new episode of All Rights Reserved. I'm your host, Yolanda Taylor, the community lawyer. I am also a housing advocate. I am a policy lawyer, and I am someone who believes deeply that informed citizens build stronger communities. If you're starting your Saturday morning with us, thank you for tuning in. Get you a cup of tea or coffee, whatever it is you like to have in the morning, because you don't want to miss this episode. This morning, we're talking about leadership, civic engagement, and growth in Knightdale and Wake County in general. Communities, though, like Knightdale, are experiencing tremendous growth. With the growth comes some growth pains, but there also comes opportunity, but also questions about housing, development, infrastructure, and community voice. And as we approach the 2026 general election, it's also time for voters like you to begin to think about civic literacy. You know, understanding not just who we vote for, but why those offices matter. Joining me this morning is someone who has dedicated his life to public service and civic participation. He's a former track star at St. Augustine University. He's a community organizer. He's been a board leader. He has been involved in voter registration advocacy, and now he is a newly council person for the town of Knightdale. Please welcome my guest this morning, Councilman Grady Bussey. Yay!
I appreciate you having me, Yolanda.
Oh, I definitely appreciate you breaking at the last minute.
Yeah.
I know you have a busy schedule, as always.
But you important.
Thank you. Thank you. And you are important because, I call myself the community lawyer.
Right.
And last weekend, I called Natalie Murdoch the people's senator. This is the people's council person. For real. So let's just talk about you a little bit, Grady.
Right. Let's do
How do your experience as a track athlete at St. Augustine University, how did that shape your leadership for today?
Well, first I appreciate that ask. I get interviewed a lot, and people forgot that I was a pretty decent athlete.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me first tell you that, if it wasn't for my St. Augustine's college at the time experience, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. Mm-hmm. I came to Raleigh, North Carolina in the early 90s when it was literally HBCU Mecca at the time. We had, everything from School Days that came out, the movie, to, Different World and The Cosby Show and all of that was highlighting the HBCU experience. Mm-hmm. So for me to attend St. Augustine's University during that time, it was twofold. One, we were nationally and internationally ranked as a track and field program. Mm-hmm. And there was a HBCU in the South. So what it really taught me at that time, one, it was to have a real sense of pride in who we were. We were always the facility underdogs. We would go to these large track meets and we would run against the University of Florida, the Tennessees, the Miamis, Arkansas, even Duke, Carolina, and State. But we would blow their doors off, and we were running in the fields, getting ready for the meets, and where they all had all these facilities and things like that. So all that to be said, that experience really taught me that, even if the odds are against you on paper, you can still step up on the line and be that dude. And we were it. I was on 3 national teams. I was on a national championship team, and it gave me the opportunity to see parts of the country I had never seen before. Mm-hmm. And so I will always dedicate my sincere gratitude for my experience because it didn't have to be that way. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, because all I knew about Grady was that he was hanging out on NC State campus, but we won't go there this morning. Oh,
I got a twin, and the world was a little different then.
The world was different then. there. No cameras, and we're going to keep it like that.
We're just going to keep it like that. The
Nothing's
90s
been documented.
was amazing.
90s were amazing. If you missed it, then you missed it.
You missed it. Cheers to the 90s.
Cheers. But it sounds like, I mean, a lot of people, I guess, underestimate, or some people do, the leadership skills that you can build by being a part of a sports team.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You learn to be a team player, so you understand the team mentality.
Absolutely.
You understand how you work together.
Absolutely.
And you understand as an individual how you can lead.
Absolutely.
Well, right?
And I think there's no substitute for hard work and dedication.
Yes.
And, I think the thing is about being an athlete, and I tell, even when my children were growing up and they were athletes, I've always explained that, there is no substitute for tenacity.
Yes.
There is no substitute for having a dogmatic mindset that you want to be number one. And even if you don't win or you're not the number one, but you train and you work as if, you take those tools to other parts of your lives. All my children, being a bragging dad moment, they became very successful as they went through college, and they became number ones in their industry. And I think there's a lot of the foundation is the concept that you work when other folks ain't working.
Yes.
And you recognize that you got to be that one that it goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
And because there is no substitute. There are some people that just have God-given talent that they can be the ones that can get up and run a 5-minute mile without training. Yes. Or who can just do things that don't
seem effortless.
Right? Effortless, but my children weren't like that, and I wasn't like that. We had to do that much more, and so I still take to this day. I ain't ran a hurdle in 35 years.
I saw you running up some steps on social media.
Yeah,
you sure that wasn't AI Grady? Was that you?
Me.
Okay, that was you. Okay.
That's me. Look, I'm a proud 52, baby. Don't do that.
He was running up some stairs like Rocky, like in the Rocky movie. Those knees, I guess nothing in the 90s hurt those knees, so that's good.
Yeah, you didn't see that part.
Well, that's amazing. And I do follow you, of course, and your beautiful family and Wanda, your wife, on social media. So I can also say kudos because your kids are amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm right behind y'all. I might be calling y'all for some advice. My kids are like right behind y'all, but I'm almost there in the thick of it. So, I mean, speaking of your family then, so how has being a husband and a father of 3 influenced your commitment to public service?
Well, I will tell you this, that I think one of the realities that I recognize about being in a public servant spotlight is that it truly gives an opportunity for my whole family to be involved in it.
Okay.
We are a family of community organizers.
Awesome.
And they see value in being in rooms to speak for those that are not in rooms. And so it's been a good experience for me. Now, what I also will recognize, and I've learned just watching other leaders, is that there is some true importance to balance that.
Yes.
We have a lot of people that will tell you that, they can be leaders and they forgot their families. And I never wanted to be that person.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure as I grow, they grow with me.
That's amazing.
Because I've seen good people who had a very gracious and sincere cause, but they sacrificed something that's irreversible.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've always valued is learning what to do and learning what not to do. And so my kids are very engaging in their industries that they're in. My daughter is the vice president of the Enloe Democratic Party club. She is truly engaged with the Wake County Democratic Party, teens. My youngest son, while he was at ECU, he was a trailblazer about getting people to vote.
Yes.
And my oldest son was the same way when he was at Duke.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that you plant seeds.
Yes.
But the dinner table conversations are still prevalent.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it doesn't mean anything.
And you got to pull aside for those, like you were saying, for those dinner table conversations.
You got to pull aside for it. You do.
That is resonating deeply with me. As someone who's also busy, trying to balance life with kids.
And it's that easy.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, for me personally, and everything's still a learn, especially now that I'm an elected official, everything's a learn. What I've recognized is that, first of all, you don't have to talk about voting every day, right? Or you ain't got to. Let's just find out what Sarah did in your 10th grade class today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or whatever. You just like it's important to meet people where they are in the streets. You got to meet your family where they are in the street. What's important to you today?
Yes.
My daughter's got this little boy that invited her to the prom.
How old is Lauren?
Lauren is 16. Now? She's 16. Lord Jesus,
my oldest is 15.
Right, so you get it. So you get it. So that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
So if I'm
so no shotguns. This guy can come pick her up.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you this now. And I'm hoping maybe this young man's listening, right?
Okay.
But the first time
you're listening, dude.
Right. So the first time, my niece, who I basically raised when before she became an adult, moved out. So the first time she brought her husband to be to my house, I actually I went on Amazon, bought a orange fluorescent jumpsuit.
Oh my God.
Like I just got out of prison and I bought some fake handcuffs.
Oh my God.
I scared the living life out of that man. Yeah.
So you came to the door like that?
I came to the door with my handcuffs. I had a bandana on my head. I got a picture. I'm going to find it. And, I just gave that impression that I'm crazy. You ain't going
to be messing. Nah. This is actually my release party, or maybe my unofficial release party. I got handcuffs on, but I bet that was funny. Yeah. Wow. I got to tell Eugene that, my husband. I got to tell he might need to do that.
He's the type of dude that'll do that.
Yeah. Because y'all both are funny and down to earth and serious when you need to be.
That's right.
So, wow, this is amazing. So, and like I said, I can see now, because my other question was going to be like, what inspired you to dedicate your life to civic engagement? But ever since I've known you, you've always been like involved in the community. Yeah. We served on the African American Cultural Festival board of Wake County and Raleigh together. And you work for the city of Raleigh.
Yeah.
You do that work. And even though you would call me, be like, Yolanda, you and we won't say the names, need to calm down a little bit.
Did I say that?
You're talking about me and blank folks. Because, I'm a housing advocate.
You about that life.
About that life. Well, but you too. You and your son, Isaiah, were protesting. Yeah. I remember that picture. During COVID, during the pandemic. They were protesting.
But you know what? I will tell you, let me just tell you this. I think, people are groomed to be who they are. And people's experiences make them who they are.
That's true.
And so when I was growing up, if it wasn't for my athletic ability, I don't know where I would have been. Like, I was not the greatest student in school. I wasn't the dude that, was the first in class to do anything. You know what I'm saying? But, put me on the field, I could run and I can tackle, I can knock people down. That was it for me. But I recognize oftentimes that, I was an underdog. And I never really had a whole lot of people advocating for me on the academic level to get me where I was. And so it molded me to make sure that as I started working, my civic life, I wanted to be that voice for people that are voiceless.
Yes.
Because if I was 5'5", 300 pounds, y'all would have never known me, because I wouldn't have been given opportunities that I was privy to, So I'm grateful, but I recognize through those experiences that, while I had scholarship offers, and while I had these different things I'm grateful for, there were those 5'5", 300-pound kids in the room
that was making A's or something.
Yeah, well, not only that, they were those that were making A's, but those 5'5", 300-pound dudes that were D's and F's,
Were they linebackers?
No.
Oh, okay.
These are people that they didn't have advocates for.
Oh, they didn't have advocates to advocate for them to either
to be able to move on to the next. They just pretty much shunned them to the side, and it was
they were discarded. Yeah.
That's what life is going to be for you, you know. And so, if it wasn't for the fact that I could do other things, that was my only way out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where these other kids, they didn't have any other way out.
They probably didn't have a way to express themselves.
Exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's amazing, Grady. Like I said, I didn't know that aspect. I mean, and don't be trying to throw your twin under the bus. I said I saw you at NC State campus. I wasn't talking about your twin. But let's go back to your community roots. Those school parties.
Baby.
Yeah, they were nice.
Yes, sir.
So you worked at Chavis Park, and later, of course, in the housing division for the city of Raleigh. What did those experiences teach you about the community needs?
Well, let me first say this, that I'm always going to be a champion for new and improved ways to engage our public.
Yes.
And so when I initially started with the city of Raleigh back in 2008, the world, I sell real estate full time at the time, and the real estate market had crashed.
Yes.
And when the real estate market crashed, I had to find something to do. Yes. Right? And so I ended up starting.
Because we used to do real estate together a little bit. Yeah, I remember.
We sold houses. We've been around a long time.
Yeah, we have. We're old.
We're old. Well, that's over. We got over 35 years. So anyway, so when I initially got started, I started working at a community center that was probably in the lowest socioeconomic communities in Raleigh at the time. And the community center I ran before I ran Chavis was the Sergeant Courtney Johnson Community Center and the John P. Top Green Community Center.
Yes, that's right, John.
Yep, and both of them are in Southeast Raleigh. And so at that time, it was a very different time with community experience. That one, with Sergeant Courtney Johnson at Southgate at the time was very high crime, high dropout, high gang, high poverty type of place. And so at that time, it was very difficult to see anything that would be a good opportunity for young children to be around and recreational things. So we had to come in and do a lot of different things. So I really learned my community engagement blueprint working in those intense settings like that. And I think that was probably one of the greatest foundations that I ever had. And I will also tell you this, that, and I've been arguing this with many people since I was blue in the face, that even in these deprived areas, there was an absolute great sense of community. People knew their neighbors more in those lower socioeconomic communities than they do in the more affluent communities.
Yeah, because it was like mutual aid. They helped each other, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. And we miss that. And I think a lot of times we have a tendency to blanket the lower socioeconomic world and think these folks don't know each other. No, Miss Pearl knew everybody.
And that's what I would hate, like sometimes, and I'm a big affordable housing advocate, when I would be on some of these calls and someone like John Kane is saying, well, we're coming to bring culture to the community.
See,
there's already culture in this community. What is your culture? Beer gardens? When we have like real culture, like you said, community.
Right. Well, and I'm hoping he just needs some help in expanding his vocabulary.
Well, I think that was actually, to be correct, I don't think it was him, because John King's not coming to these meetings. He has representatives and delegates coming. So I believe it was actually a delegate.
They didn't know no better than what they did. People sometimes can say things, they don't know what they're saying.
But that's why we, as community, like you said, community voices, community people that are being impacted by whatever the decision is, need to be like in the room, and need to have their voices heard, so they can just say, they can educate them. There's culture here, like you were saying. There's even deeper culture in lower wealth
and we have a tendency to miss, and I think that's one of those realities of it all.
Well, I want to fast forward because, I mean, you definitely, listeners, you've heard about, how Mr. Bussey or Councilman Bussey got started, just being an athlete, and it's inspiring to see, his ascent to now being a chairperson, a council person of Knightdale City Council. And I'm personally not surprised because I've seen his ascension. But let's just talk about, what are the biggest changes happening in Knightdale right now?
Yeah. So I will tell you this, there are a lot of moving parts in municipals. And I think one of the biggest realities is that, it's the same thing that everybody's dealing with is housing and growth. So there is there are some real numbers for the next 10 years. We're going to have over 8,000 new homes that's going to be built in Knightdale. So we have a population of about 25,000 now, and in 10 years we're going to be clearly doubling that.
Yes, the whole state is about to really grow, especially like Wake County. And the reality is that we are accessible to everything. We have great schools, and people. There's still a sense of community. We feel like a suburb of the big city kind of thing. And so with all of that said, we are a gravitational pull to families, seniors, and as well as individuals that just want to get started, So with that said, we recognize that there are a lot of decisions that have to be made to make sure that the concept of community doesn't fade, that we still are able to offer goods and services and experiences that people can be proud to call home. So we have some very talented people on our board. As well as the mayor that just believe in, we have to plant good seeds in good soil and make decisions that we think that are best for the community. I'm just really surprised to see how Knightdale has grown. Never considered buying a home there, but now I wish I had. I'm in Wake Forest, and I would say Knightdale is more accessible to Raleigh than Wake Forest is, because Capitol Boulevard is a nightmare. Well, being that you also work for the city of Raleigh and you also had an opportunity to work in housing development, as a, someone on the outside and who does a lot of work around land use and zoning and planning, how do you think Knightdale should plan to make sure that every neighborhood has access to opportunity? Because, for example, being in Wake Forest, I will say that North Raleigh seems to be ignored a little bit. Over there by Triangle Town Center. But all the growth is happening, and I know it's planned to be in Briar Creek and downtown Raleigh and North Hills. I know there's certain hot pockets, but then you have a whole stretch of city that's kind of abandoned a little bit, in my opinion.
Well, here's the thing. What I will say, that first of all, one of the beauties about Knightdale is that we are only, say, 10 square miles. So we are a small town.
You're doing a lot in that 10 square miles.
In a little bitty town, man. So the pro to that is that, our fingerprint is on everything.
Yes.
So nothing is, nobody's left behind. You know what I'm saying? So we are building fire stations to make sure that we're able to provide the services. We just built a state-of-the-art police department. And we are in the process now of a bond referendum for a new community center.
Awesome.
So we are recognizing that we have a town that everybody needs to, everybody should feel like we're growing with them. Now there's growing pains, of course, and I think one of the things that I've really been excited to see is when we talk about different developments and developers come in with ideas that we go through tooth and nail to make sure that the ambiance of the development fits into the structure that we're looking for.
Yes.
We make sure that we have open space and play areas, or we make sure that our green green spaces are still adequate. You know what I mean? So there is a bar that we have, and I think we're not a town that is so focused on tax income that we're just gonna let anybody put anything up. You know,
and that's important because this is a voter issue. You said bond referendum, right?
Yeah.
So would that be on the ballot for voters?
So
or is that a different bond?
So this bond that we're talking about now, that's going to be on the November 2026 ballot, is going to be directly dealing with our community center.
Community center. So voters, are you hearing that?
Yeah.
When you elect, when you go to vote, oftentimes there are these like local bond referendums that you need to be educated about.
Yep.
So this is a community center. So if you live in Knightdale, you the voter need to decide, do we need this community center?
Yeah.
I mean, it does affect their taxes, though, right?
It does, absolutely.
So that's a decision you have to make. Like, is an increase in our taxes worth having this benefit?
Right.
Because the community center is a benefit.
And I will tell you this, that, and again, because of the fact that I have over 20 years of community center experience.
Yes.
I have seen from my own eyes the benefit of making sure that you have a space for young people, for seniors that have the ability to have rentals and have experiences. And
meetings, exercises, exercise, aerobics, Zumba,
all of these things.
Yeah.
And Knightdale has one center that does not, we'll just say it's not up to where our standard is.
Okay, got you.
And because of that, and we're talking about we're doubling in 10 years, we have to have spaces and places for us to be able to do all the things that you mentioned.
Yes.
And if you don't have that, what's going to end up happening, the private industry will figure it out for us.
Okay. Yeah.
And what you don't want to do is put yourself in a position that you're on the mercy of the private sector for recreational activity, because then they control the market. Yeah. And anytime any private industry controls the market, people that are less likely to be able to participate if they don't have the money to do it. So you're going to leave out a plethora of people if you don't allow the town to be the leader in this space.
And I think a community center is so beneficial. I grew up right down the street from Reed Street Community Center in Wilson, right?
Shout out.
Yeah, that's where Black kids learn how to swim, because for whatever reason, and I was an implant. I moved to Wilson when I was 10. But they used to call the other recreation center the White Rag, and I actually thought that was the name. Like, I'm going to the White Rag. But then later, when I got older, I realized what that meant. I'm like, that's not the official name. I thought that was the name of the center, the White Rag. I was calling it that at events, But and so when the city of Wilson got the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, and they wanted to consider how they were going to spend those federal dollars. Yeah. Some wanted to remove the lap swim pool and put a splash pad. The community organized around that. It was like, no, this is, we don't need a splash pad. What are you trying to do, gentrify our pool? We need a pool because this is where Black kids have to learn how to swim. We know that that's a issue in our community because of historic segregated pools, right? So, but thank you so much. And I know we only have a little time here, but what you're doing, and the reason why I wanted you here is, one, to congratulate you for the third time for winning your race. But I know that when you were running, you got to see challenges around maybe voter registration and voter literacy. Is there anything you want to say about that?
What I will tell you is this, that, and again, I'm only speaking on my own experience.
Yes.
That Wake County Board of Elections do take it seriously that people are informed.
Yes.
But it takes the voter to find time to be informed. We live in a very shiny penny society where we don't find time to look at and understand candidates like we should.
Yes.
Especially people of color.
Yes.
We need to take a minute to figure out who's this person that's going to be representing me.
Yeah. Why do you think that is, Grady? Because I even have lawyers, which is ridiculous to me, asking me who to vote for.
Yeah, well, if I could figure that out, I'll probably be president. I don't know.
Well, you can say me, vote for me.
Well, but what I will say is this. I will say this, that I did. I had the highest vote received in the history of Knightdale.
That's awesome.
And I will tell you that one of the things that it seemed to have been important to people was that I was consistently engaging them. So, they were able to see my website, they were able to see me on my social media pages, but I was at spaces and places too.
You just recently did the musical chairs or the rhythm chairs.
That's right.
At Haven Farm.
But people give me life.
You do, energy.
People give me life.
Being in the community.
And so I wanted to be, the people's councilman.
Yes,
I wanted to be,
and
I want to be that person that people see that I'm reachable, I'm touchable. I can work with you. So all that to be said. And I recognize that there's a sense of responsibility when it comes to, being an elected official to bridge, hand my hand back and make sure who I'm bringing folks forward.
And mentoring.
Right. And so that's the reason why, I'm making it important that we have an early voting site in the town of Knightdale for this bond referendum, because I want to make sure that people have easy access to decide whether or not we want to be prepared for our future when it comes to a community center.
Yes.
And we're going to do our part to keep people informed, make sure they understand,
the benefits of a community.
Right. And there is an investment involved, right? We recognize that, nothing in life is free but salvation. Can I say that on this?
Yeah, you can say that on here because I go to church.
Right, there you go.
But go ahead.
So there is a sense that we have to figure out the why and
why we're voting, and like you say, understanding the issue, and like you said, the return on investment of a community center will yield, like I mentioned, generational benefits.
Well, and that's the part, and there's so many layers that go along with it, from the overall generational experience that you're going to have. Just like you just said, when you were growing up, this is where you learn to swim.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Where if you got 25,000 people right now in Knightdale, nobody has that experience.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or the opportunity to have a safe space for your child to be dropped off at.
Yes.
You should be able to work, live, and grow, and your children should be able to be educated and recreationed right there where they live.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to drive into Raleigh.
They shouldn't have to do that. They shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, like in Wake Forest, we definitely have some great parks,
right?
And trails and green spaces,
right? And we do, and we have some of those too.
Yeah, because I was like, y'all always have like events at this one park. I see a lot.
Station,
Knightdale Station.
Shout out to us on that, and we do have other spots.
Yeah,
but we need right now. We're on a spot where everything's on steroids.
Yes,
and we need to make sure that we are prepared and understand the value of those type of experiences.
Does the city of Knightdale, do y'all have an affordable housing plan?
So we do,
Okay.
So a lot of that does fall into the Wake County plan that it's already having.
Yes.
And so as housing is an area that there's a lot of trickle down to it. What's happening federally, what happens in the state, what happens in the county, what happens in your own town.
Yeah.
And so we recognize the importance of having multiple partners to try to make sure that at the end of the day, the first-time home buyer has available to be a first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
We just saw a statistic that now the first-time home buyers are closer to 40 years old.
Wow, yeah, because some generations have felt left out of being able to even have that experience as a homeowner. And a lot of baby boomers are sitting on wealth. So as an estate plan attorney, I see the wealth that baby boomers are sitting on. And it's my goal to counsel them on how to transfer that wealth to the next generation, so we can have trust fund babies. Right. Our kids can inherit the wealth of our parents.
That's what I'm saying. And that's the part that it's the education of that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like I remember the first house I bought was in the late 90s. I bought a townhouse for $52,500. I was 22 years old.
So good.
You're right. And I remember getting finding $1,500 and put down on this house, and that was my down payment, and that was a big deal to me.
Yeah.
I paid $489 a month.
Wow.
I remember all of that. You know?
Can you believe having a townhome today? I'm looking at Brandon in the studio. He's shaking his head. You know that you could pay that amount a month when there are some townhomes being built in Raleigh that are like in the millions, and in Wake Forest, you know, it's way more than that. You know, it's $500,000, and
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, so the concept that you could build on that, and
and pass down that wealth,
pass it down,
because it's going to appreciate.
Pass it down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, obviously the world's very different now.
Yes.
Right? And so what we have to do as a municipal is, one, recognize the world is different.
Yeah.
And help figure out creative ways that's not taxing to the buyer to get them into these homes. I do believe that there is a light. People are still buying and selling. So there are still, even though, you know, I mean, in the first house I bought, my interest rate was at 8.5%.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it was a little higher than what it is now. Wow, because the market has fluctuated over a period of time.
Right.
Yes.
And so, you know, now maybe the 3% rates are done with the dinosaurs. I don't know.
Yes.
But the reality is that, you know, Wake County is the greatest place to live, greatest place to educate your children, greatest place to, you know, in terms of climates.
Yes.
I mean, we have some dysfunctional.
Even though it's kind of weird. Yeah, this morning it was like there was like frost on the car, and yesterday I was like. And
your t-shirt and
almost,
shorts.
Yeah.
Right, I don't get it. I don't know how it works. But all that, we have seasons, right?
Yes.
And so there's always going to be a demand for people to be here. The biggest thing that we have to do as a municipal is create, you know, channels for people to be able to do it. You know,
yes,
we are not. You know, we don't have time to talk about it today. But one of the biggest concerns I've always had was, you know, corporations buying properties in bulk, kind of thing.
Well, you know, there is this, and I'm seeing this even at the federal level, if I'm not mistaken, about how there's this bill that passed in one chamber of Congress, and it had bipartisan support, where they're going to try to limit, like you say, corporations from being able to swarm down into communities. And they have targeted Black communities,
of course,
especially like in Charlotte and places like that. And they're just buying it up, and they're becoming slumlords, you know. And so I don't know if that bill will pass Congress, but that is important. That is in there, that limits that. And they're trying to, you know, move some of the regulations that prevent the expansion of housing being built in the first place. So we'll just see if this administration or this Congress is able to pull that off. And I know we're going to have to land this plane soon, as I like to say, you know, but one of the goals of the show is to build civic literacy, especially because we're going into the what do you call it? The general elections in November. But one of the key races we should all watch in 2026 is the North Carolina Supreme Court race.
Absolutely.
The court currently has a 5-2 conservative majority. And this decisions can shape issues like vote rights, some of the things that we're talking about, redistricting, as we've seen, how Congressional 1, District 1, Don Davis's district has been rewritten to favor a Republican candidate. But the Supreme Court also can shape things like educational funding, the Leandra decision, and constitutional interpretations. One seat is up currently, and that's held by Justice Anita Earls, who has served on the court since 2019, voters. Justice Earls is a former civil rights attorney. She's known for her work on voter rights and public education issues, but she is seeking re-election, listeners, and she's being challenged by State Representative Sarah Stevens, a longtime member of the North Carolina General Assembly. She's Republican. This race will actually determine one of those 7 seats that I said already is held majority by the Republican Party. But these races matters because courts often decide election disputes, We saw this recency in the whole like Justice Riggs, Allison Riggs, how she had to really fight, in campaigning and in the courts to retain her seat because of the legal challenges that her opponent waged against her. But looking ahead, many observers do believe that the makeup of our highest court, the North Carolina Supreme Court, will be extremely important as North Carolina approaches the next round of redistricting in 2030. Understanding these races is part of being an informed voter.
Yes.
So we're going to just, I'm glad that you're working on voter turnout because that's important.
Yeah.
At the very local level, municipal races are important too.
Yes.
So the next time those roll around, make sure you are engaged.
Yes.
How can communities increase voter turnout? That's one of the last questions I want to ask you.
Let me first say this. I think one of the most significant things that we do as a society is mobilize. And sometimes we get so caught up in these large television shows that give you all these statistics. People fail to realize how important it is for you to pick up the phone and call your neighbor.
Yes.
And so there is mobilization. It is the greatest ground game there is. If you look at the history of, I was actually looking at recently the history of the Alabama, the Birmingham bus boycott, and it was talking about how there was a mobilization that took place where everybody held each other accountable for the information that was coming next. So that's how people were able to get to work because they knew Mr. Jones was picking up 5 people on the corner of Parker and State Street. So if you need to get a ride going this way, that's how you're doing it. So instead of it being a problem with the buses, we became our own bus.
Yeah, we became our own buses and we were able to sustain one of the longest boycotts.
So it was an economic turnaround.
It was.
It wasn't just a civil rights thing. This is an economic and showing you that we're gonna put our money where our mouth is.
Yes, we are.
And so here's it. So with that said, we as a people are very good at understanding the importance of mobilization.
Mobilization is sticking together.
Sticking together.
Yes,
and so
sticking
when
together.
we talk about these elections and Anita Earls and all of these people that are going to be on this ballot, hold us accountable to be able to pick up the phone and call our neighbors and call our cousins and call our friends and say, man, look.
And don't assume that someone is registered to vote because they're 70. We learned that on the last episode that there are some people out there in their 60s and 70s who have never voted before for whatever reason.
Yes, and see, and that's where you are the greatest person of influence.
Yes.
You are the greatest person of influence. It's not CNN, it's not MSNBC, it's not Fox News. It is you being able to know, all right, I got at least 5 numbers I know by heart.
Yeah, some of us know numbers by heart. I only know the ones pre-2000 by heart.
You know your kids' numbers by heart?
I know not my 12-year-olds. Really because kids don't even call. They video call. They don't do audio. Like my kids never. And I'm just like, why are you always video calling me?
I'm going to tell you what's even worse. I know my kids' Instagram stuff before I know their phone number.
Really?
Because they will call me on their IG.
That's what I'm saying. They do that. They don't use the phone like we use the phone. They don't. Do you know
the number of the phone number you grew up in?
Yes, I know the number that I grew up. I know that. Right? Yeah, and that was in South Carolina. I still know that number.
You still got no number, but I'm gonna tell you, if they were like Grady, if you can't regurgitate all your kids' numbers. And I ain't got but 3 kids.
I'm like, they need to give some grace when you start getting like 50 over. I mean, and plus, you hold a lot of information in your brain. Yeah. I hold a lot of information in my brain. So some things go to the back of the brain and I want to prioritize.
But you can spit out a 90s rock.
I know my husband's number. We know, I know the main numbers, right? I know 911. If I need to call 911. But we're going to have to end this show. And it's been a pleasure having you here. And like people say, like Grady basically just said it his way, which I love his way, but Obama said it too. And a lot of y'all follow and love Obama. He said, we are the change that we want to see.
Absolutely.
So we are the change that we want to see. Your ascension and what you do is so inspiring.
Thank you.
Last question, what's your favorite place in Knightdale?
Oh, my favorite, besides my house?
Yes.
Knightdale Station.
Knightdale Station,
Yeah.
y'all heard that. That's a
you go.
special place. So as we wrap up
Yeah.
this morning show, remember this: strong communities don't happen by accident. It happens because of you being involved, being engaged, being at the table, going to the ballot, electing the people's council person to
go.
represent your issues. It really happens because people choose to engage, and not just engage, remain consistent in your participation, in your engagement, and also mobilizing. You know, like Councilman Bussey has stated here, mobilizing and bringing your family and your friends along. Because local government matters. Things like housing and development matter. That's what we talked about. Civic engagement matters. And of course, democracy and voting matters. But it works best when citizens are informed. So make it a plan. Start working on your voter plan. Start looking up your ballot by going to the North Carolina State Board of Elections website. Do voter search. Type in your information. Scroll down. You can click on your ballot. And you can see who's running. Start doing your research. Start getting to know the candidates. There are going to be candidate forums. Listen to this radio show every Saturday at 9 a.m. because it's our desire here to have a candidates forum where we're bringing people who are in office, who have ran, like I'm Councilperson Bussey, senators like Senator Natalie Murdoch, who was here last week, and people who are hoping to get your vote and win your vote. We're going to have them on here. But I really want to thank my guest, Councilman Grady Bussey, this morning.
Thank you
for joining us.
No
and
doubt.
to our listeners, again, stay engaged and make sure your voice is really heard. Because when it comes to your rights, your vote, and your community, those rights are all rights reserved. I'm Yolanda Taylor. Have a wonderful Saturday morning. See you next week.
All rights reserved with Yolanda Taylor. Tuesdays at 5 on Choice.